Evening and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. So we're kind of still kind of getting everything together, but I figured we'd just kind of do a quick recap. Over the past two episodes, we followed one of the most compelling investigations we've ever covered here on Chasing Evil. What began as a search for a missing 17-year-old girl quickly evolved into a painstaking homicide investigation that relied on digital forensics, surveillance, search warrants, cadaver dogs, and of course, relentless police work. Piece by piece, investigators uncovered a web of deceptions that ultimately led to Patrick Scott's conviction for the murder of Valerie Tyndall. So, welcome everybody, and let us introduce those that are with us at the moment, and then we will bring those that are trying to get in eventually. First, we have Randy Meek, who is the lead detective on the investigation from Rush County, Indiana. Welcome, Randy.
Thanks for having me.
And we have Tony Weaver, who is a detective with the Indianapolis PD Missing Persons Unit and the partner for the star of the show, who is sitting right next to him there, Canine Officer Bailey. Welcome.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Just as we're waiting for everybody else, let's talk a little bit about Bailey. Tell us about Bailey. How old is she, and how long you guys been working together, doing cases, and she is not a. I guess there are two types of dogs. There's bite dogs, and then there's cadaver dogs, and I guess there's a couple others. But talk about what kind of dog she is.
All right. She's 5 years old. She turned 5 on St. Patty's Day. I got her when she was 9 weeks old and started training her right away. I was already involved in search and rescue, working with Homeland Security, and got her from the chief of the canine division, Lillian Hardy, at 9 weeks old, and started training her right away at 9 weeks old. She started coming to work with me every day and has been with me ever since.
And what? Okay, so she's going to be a cadaver dog. So what is that? What does the initial training look like for a cadaver dog? How do you start to differentiate one job from another?
Well, what she initially starts doing is we start introducing her to odor, and I apologize. We're having a little technical difficulty here. We're trying to get my phone set up here.
That's okay.
And we are gone. You got to kid me.
Can you get that in there?
All right.
All right.
Am I still there?
You are?
And I apologize. That's not the best. Here, we set it back further so you can see Bailey.
Okay.
Can you see Bailey there? Is that okay?
Let me introduce Tom Abreu, who is a senior inspector with the U.S. Marshal Service out of the Great Lakes Regional Fugitive Task Force. Hello, sir.
How's it going?
And sporting a fine beard.
Thanks.
We are just going over a little bit about Bailey and how you start training as a cadaver dog.
All right. I think we're good. I think we're set up.
Okay.
Anyway, so we start introducing her to odor when she's young. At that point in time, anytime she shows any interest in odor, she gets rewarded. So she quickly learns that going to odor or detecting odor is a positive. And outside, away from that, then we teach her things like, what is going to be her communication, how to sit, how to do obedience, how to search. And then you kind of combine it all as she gets more experience and as she gets better at what she does.
Okay. And then how do you just, we'll get it. Well, not because it's just occurring to me now and I'm just curious. How do you distinguish, like she learns to distinguish a decomposition smell, right? A decomposition odor, and you can
It
distinguish
actually
that
comes
from other odors.
from pieces and parts. We literally get source from the coroner's office in county. That's one of the things that they can provide source to us as long as we're using it for the purposes of training by law. And so I've
I'm not sure
out,
why else you would be using it, but
correct.
Okay.
Correct. And so we worked out a deal with them where we got a freezer, and believe it or not, they literally stock that for me to supply myself and other people I'm working with true pieces, if you will, of cadaver, and with a little bit of everything, with tissue and blood and organs and bone and things like fingers and feet and things that have all the sources combined. And we literally train with them almost every day.
So, how many odors is she trained to distinguish and alert on?
Well, we deal with older odors, like older bones and things you might find if it's an older case. We deal with fresh, and we deal with the tissue and the organs and blood and bone and ashes, and then we also train and deal with water finds, and so she can recover. She's certified find cadaver or find human remains in water, and so that as much as we can, we train with.
Okay. And to everybody watching, just if you have a question, just type it into the chat and I will see it and we will get it answered for you. And just when you say older, you don't just mean older. You told me that they use dogs in archaeological digs for like bones recovered that date back to ancient Egypt, for instance. Am I correct?
Correct. They'll use dogs for anything where there's still remains, if that makes sense. They'll use them for Indian burial grounds, trying to find old burial grounds at like homesteads of people from 1800s. And if there's still bone there, if there's still something there.
Wait one sec. Detective Sean Smallwood, we are happy to have you. You need to turn down your volume a little bit because there's some feedback that we're hearing.
Did that work better?
Still a bit loud. So why don't try muting yourself and then mute in and come in and out when.
Is that better?
Not really. I'm sorry, everyone. Try leaving the room and coming back in, I think. Yeah.
I apologize. I can't hear you.
Oh, well, then that's that's an issue. We will get this all worked out. Thanks everybody for hanging with us. Hey, Randy, could you text Sean and tell him to go in and go out? All right, let us get back to let's get to the Patrick Scott case. So you guys, there was so much to this case in terms of using technology. When you first, Randy, when you first came onto this, it's a missing child. So in Rush County, describe Rush County. Is a missing child case, is that common, or is this something that is, you know what, we don't get many of these, and this is something we got to jump on, or does this happen every once in a while? Teens run away. What kind of county? What do you get in your county?
It's not uncommon that we have kids run away. What makes this one uncommon was the length of time that it was. So we're no different than, I mean, we're a small county, very big farming community, not a lot of population, low crime, and so you'll have a kid run away every once in a while for a few hours or maybe even a day. It is unusual for us to have a long term, and especially a case like this, it's super unusual for our community to have this.
So when do people normally disappear for a day or two and they're just with friends and then they come back kind of thing?
Yes, yeah.
And what made you think this might be a little bit different?
So this hit when Sean and I first got it. It had been 3 days, and nobody had heard from Valerie during that time, and we were issuing that silver alert at the time. And so, what made this one kind of unusual was that you have a girl that's fairly active on her social media and communicating with her friends. That all of a sudden now we're not hearing from her, and so the term of how long she had been missing and nobody had heard from her in that time kind of made this one unusual versus the other ones.
Right, right. Hey, Sean, the volume is still too loud.
I can't fix it. I'll just cut out.
All right, thanks, Sean. And you were, by the way, it wasn't a little bit, right? Like I think I remember something where she was on social media she had hundreds of messages a day that she was sending on social media.
So, I mean, I think that is how kids communicate primarily now. And so kids communicate a lot, and she was no different. She communicated a lot on her social medias and through texting, mainly social media. So yes, I mean, there was an end point to her communication that we saw.
Right. And that,
At the
so to
time,
go
of
from
course,
hundreds of messages a day to zero.
yeah, and now keep in mind, initially we obviously didn't know that those search warrants were being applied for, and we were submitting them. So at that time, all we knew was that the close friends had not heard from her. So we didn't know the end point was there yet until we started getting the results back from those.
Right. And this wasn't completely and totally uncommon for her. She had met people prior a couple of
That's
times, right?
yes, yes.
So this could have just been a day or two kind of, or a couple of days kind of thing, and then she'd be back.
Yeah, I think your initial days could have been common for any kid that ran away or was being a juvenile.
Right. And then it stops, and then then this has to go into another gear for you, because then it's separate. Is that what separated it from the norm? Is the amount of time that has now passed?
Yeah, and it just yes. I mean, again, we had no information at the beginning, and when 2-3 days starts passing and we're not getting anybody. And I think the other thing I've kind of talked about in the past about this is at that time her car was missing, and in this day and age, it's really hard to hide a car or a car not to be found with the technology out there, surveillance cameras and all that out there now. The fact that we couldn't find her car for a pretty good period of time there, I think that was kind of telling in this investigation to us that there's something's not adding up to it. And then when we started getting all the data back that we were applying for, that's when we started seeing that end day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Tom, just let's go over again when the marshals kind of came into this.
I think when Randy emailed me, they had been investigating for about 2 months, I believe. To that 2-month mark that we got the initial email from him asking what we could provide.
And then, so 2 months is obviously that's the longest you've had it. This is either she's gone or something else has happened, right? Pretty much, I think.
Yeah, there was. I mean, at the end, when Tom came on, I mean, we were still hopeful, but by that point, there we were thinking there was something more here than just a runaway, and thankfully, everything we had done at the beginning was we were we didn't slack on anything we had right at the beginning, filed all these. We didn't lose any of the data. And I think that's one of the things that immensely helped us in this is at the beginning, we were making sure that data was retained. We were making sure we were applying for search warrants for it. And all of that became so crucial in the end to piece everything together.
Right.
And if we wouldn't have done that those beginning days, it would have purged through their system and we would have lost it. We wouldn't have got any of that. So I think the initial making sure we were at least getting that data out was crucial in our investigation.
Right. And what was the first since she left? She said she told her parents she was going to go work for Patrick Scott that day, right?
Yeah,
she's on June 7th, and Patrick Scott said nope, she didn't work that day.
Yes, which matched. She didn't work. That was a Wednesday, and she didn't normally work on a Wednesday. But the parents didn't really think. I mean, it was obviously in the heart of he owned a mowing service, and it was in the heart of a mowing season. So rain and different stuff, he could have been behind. So in the initial, her saying she was going to work on a day she wasn't supposed to work wasn't this massive red flag.
Right. And then how did you increase your level of interest in him? What made you the very first thing that made you a little bit suspicious of him as somebody who might have helped her run away?
The last person what we knew that day was she said she was going to go to work. So that's the last thing we knew that day. That's what we had to go off of at that. And then once we, saw the text messages coming back of her stating, on my way now, and it was to him, we knew they had met up. And then another real big thing where we locked into Patrick, because at the initial, Patrick was he was cooperative the whole time, but Patrick initially, what he was saying made sense. He had supporting details to what he was saying. She didn't work that day. Everything had supporting details to it when he would talk to us. And what helped us was when we started getting back her locations, I think it was Sean was able to find a surveillance camera, and we were able to match up the time that the car, what the time that her phone was coming through. And what we discovered was a maroon car was coming through at the same time. And we were able to track that back to Patrick's family member having that maroon car. And so that finding that surveillance camera and being able to loop that time that her device was coming through there, that started telling us Patrick was lying to us at that point.
And how did he handle it? Because, her parents, Valerie's parents, trusted him. He was a trusted member. How do people normally handle it when you say, hey, you're not telling us the truth? I mean, would you consider this guy a class A liar? How often do you run into somebody who is that good on their feet at lying?
Well, he was very good at it, and not normally do you find somebody as good as him. Now, I mean, full disclosure, as times went on now, and I go back and I'll see interviews or times that we talk to him, I see things now, knowing everything that I know, everything that's put together. Now I see things where I'm like, oh, he's being deceptive there that I didn't necessarily catch at the time. But his ability in a very, very short amount of time to have supporting details to what lie he was saying. It wasn't just, that, oh, she went with a boy. Oh, she went with a boy named so-and-so with the first name of so-and-so. I don't really know him. She's talked about him before. And he was operating this color car and they went this direction. And that may seem minor, but he did that at all times. He always had supporting details when he was talking to us until the very end.
Right. Tom, what did you think of him as a credible source?
Well, I mean, I had the benefit of 2 months of investigation happening that I could look back on with a fresh set of eyes, right? So, I mean, they were involved in it from the beginning, and it was every single day. I got to come in and read reports and look at it and think, having never talked to Patrick, that he seems to be very likely involved in some capacity. And so, you know, getting down there and talking with Randy, I think when I first got down there, the belief was still that she left, she ran away, and is maybe getting assistance from Patrick. Like he's, you know, he's obviously involved. He helped her run away. She had talked about running away, and he was possibly providing financial assistance or a place to live or something. And I remember in the first few days we kind of looked into that. But you know, being able to sit there and read everything that had happened, it was just such a big red flag for me that he was involved in any way, that from the onset, and this is what I told Randy when I came down, I said, I'm going to look at him like a suspect. And that's kind of the view I had because I was able to enter the investigation at a later point. And so, you know, as we continued to investigate and look into it, you know, Randy and I started talking more about it. And the more we were able to dig up on Patrick Scott, the more it started pointing at he's absolutely involved and entirely unlikely that it's assisting her.
Oh, so you were ready to take it to another level, not necessarily knowing what level that was?
Well, you know, just based on everything that they had already looked into, I was finding it harder and harder each day that went by to believe that she is out, you know, hiding somewhere on her own. And especially after talking to her parents and asking them, is she the type of person that she's mature enough and capable enough to go out and kind of take care of herself on her own? And everybody said no, you know. So with all that combined with the previous investigation, it just didn't seem very likely she was out on her own. And so, you know, obviously Patrick is the prime suspect here. He's already, by the time I came into the investigation, they'd already charged him because he had already been caught in the lie, you know. And so at reading that and looking at that, it's kind of like, you know, this guy's lying. He's covering up something. It's just, is he covering up assistance or is he covering up something worse? And from my perspective coming in, it seemed like it was likely something worse.
Right. And Sean, what did you guys charge him with first?
I don't recall.
Oh, okay. Randy, do you?
We charged
I think it
false
was
informing.
interfering with an investigation. Oh, okay.
And that's just a charge you get if you're caught in a lie.
Yeah, so he had told us that he hadn't seen her that day. He hadn't been with her. She didn't work for him that day. And by that point there, we knew that was false because we knew they were together. So we charged him with false informing, which would have been a misdemeanor.
Right. And when you're charging him and where you're saying, hey, man, we know that's not the truth, does he react like most people go, oh, yeah, you got me, or I'm so sorry, I won't do that again? Or what's he's so seemingly so manipulative. What is his reaction?
It was, I mean, he admitted that he lied. He admitted that he had given her a ride that day basically to help her run away. But to go with the supporting details, one thing I remember is he said at one point, you know, one of the things we asked him was, had she reached out to ask for help or anything? And he said no, but if she does, I would financially help her. I mean, I would help her out if she does reach out. I would do that for her. I mean, it's just like things like that. And it's, you expect that to be the slip up and talk about the past tense. And he didn't do that. And, you know, that is where his ability to lie on the fly was so impressive.
So all the tells that you guys are used to seeing, and because I've done some podcasts with guys that are really bad at it, that give themselves up immediately, and guys who are so committed to it and so friendly and seemingly want to be extraordinarily helpful. And you guys must run into that, you know, kind of all the time, I would imagine, both sides.
Yeah, and I mean it's the same thing Tom was saying. I mean, we knew likely that he had done something bad to her. We were just trying to get him to slip up enough to tell us and get to that point. And I think that's where it was crucial that we kept the pressure on pretty much the whole time. I mean, he was under pretty much pressure from us at all times.
And, you know, looking back to, you can see Patrick was kind of laying a foundation for some kind of like pushing the guilt over to the family. Cause the day after she goes missing, he starts texting her, "Hey, are you okay?" And then I think he texted something like, "Is it your dad? Are you afraid of your dad? Is there something I can do?" And I think I remember in one of the reports too, when they had initially talked to him, he had said like, "Oh, she had a bad relationship with her dad and had talked about running away because of it." So he had started to lay that foundation like immediately that like, "Oh, she's definitely running away, and it's because of this." And it was kind of starting to build that up from day one. It seemed like.
That's a little bit of criminal masterminding to be thinking that far ahead. No.
Well, I mean, was it that night or was it the next day that his first text went to Valerie's phone? I think it was the next day.
It was short time after, but they also, if I remember right, went over to the family and offered help.
That's right. And they were
night
pushing
of.
with the family the runaway story. Oh, she'll come back, So it was being laid on pretty thick from the beginning. They were pushing the runaway, and he was kind of trying to pad that story to kind of give him some space from it, I think.
And he had killed her that night, and she was in his house.
And he killed her that afternoon at around noon, we think,
right.
noon or
well,
1.
I want to talk about that in a second. Yeah. And then they went out for dinner.
Right.
So in your experience, Sean as well, is that calm, cool, and collected, or is that like sociopath? I mean, that's extraordinary. He's thinking about, he clearly didn't panic. He thought about, how am I going to sell this? And then he was like, look, it's dinner, let's go, and not obviously worried that of what he had just done to this poor girl and left her inside the house unbeknownst to the rest of the family.
Yeah, I mean I think Tom said it in the past. I think it definitely deserves a study of some sort.
I don't think he is a stranger to lying. I think this was not the first time that he had to lie to a bunch of people and keep a story. There's just no way. I think he had a history of deceiving people and manipulating facts, because there's no way that all of a sudden you just pick it up and run with it. It seems like probably his whole life he'd been deceiving people in some way or another.
Right. So being a
He was super
practitioner
calm
of
about it, though.
Go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry. Sean, did you say something?
No, he was super calm about it in the beginning. Right. He began to start to come unraveled as we went, and where he was really good at lying, he was starting to have some problems. But in the beginning, you could not have picked it up. He was definitely practiced at it for sure.
But it's usually if somebody does something like that, there is, because it wasn't premeditated. I mean, I think that's, one could probably agree with that. Is that something you guys would agree with?
That it wasn't premeditated?
Right.
Yeah, no, I think it was a heat of the moment
Right.
type event.
Randy and Sean, you think perhaps that there's something else going on?
I don't know.
After. Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know for sure if it was heat of the moment or if there, was a plan when he took her back to the house that day. So, I mean, I'm not positive on that.
But you think there's a possibility?
Yeah.
Okay. Sean?
I'm leaning to the same direction as that. I think he was always in control. So for him to lose control at that moment, it just, and I can't be certain, of course, but it really seemed to me like he may have already had a well thought out plan. And I have to say that I'm with Randy on this one. I'm not sure he didn't already think about what he was going to do.
I mean, he obviously said it just kind of happened.
Right.
So,
Right. But that's a pretty well thought out plan to start sending texts and start shifting the suspicion over to somebody else. That's a real move, right?
I mean, it was, yeah.
I kind
I
of
mean,
think he was recovering.
Right. I mean, that's yeah, it's so interesting. And then sometimes, obviously, people go a little too far. This other podcast, this guy, they were looking for a missing girl. She was in the house, and they showed up and without a warrant. He's like, "Yeah, come on in, go ahead and take a look for her," thinking she was well hidden enough. But they were like, absolutely, I would have bet the farm that she couldn't have been with as nice as she was and inviting us in and said, basically, go look anywhere. There's not a chance that she's hiding in that house. And she was. So I've kind of heard a lot of different versions, and it's really, I think, very hard, obviously, for you guys, because you're dealing with so many different personalities. You have no idea which one you're going to get. So when did you guys become suspicious of every time he said what? And he was using the hard of hearing tactic.
We were pretty suspicious of that pretty early. It worked a little bit at the beginning, but we were pretty suspicious of that pretty early.
Right. I thought it was an interesting tactic because he sold it. I was watching some of the tape, and I'm like, I believe it.
He could hear great when you were talking about lawn mowing or anything of that nature, but the moment you start talking about Valerie, the hearing issues got worse.
Uh-huh. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. So, by the way, everybody, get some questions in there about Patrick, directed toward anybody. Bailey is taking a snooze, waiting for your questions. She is too cute. I'm sorry. I just take a little look. So talk about, and for those people that hadn't had a chance to hear it, because I thought it was again, there's a lot of first times for me, and I'm thinking this is like, this could be in any Sherlock Holmes episode, although perhaps it wasn't invented at that time. But talk about the Apple Health app.
So that one was found by accident. So by that point there,
I keep telling everybody you guys are geniuses.
You can keep saying it, but it was there's some luck with this and just a good team of personalities together that all worked together. But there was at that point in time we were spinning our wheels. We had the amount of information we were having to sift through, and there was not very many of us that were going through it, and we were just to the point where we were almost, and when you do these, any law enforcement officer that's ever done them will know what I'm saying about this, but we were clicking every button and every forensic dump of every device we had just to see if there was anything in there, and just happened to catch that it started recording a stat like that. It would show high moments of heart rate on his Apple Health, and he clearly, I don't think, Patrick wasn't wearing a Garmin and he wasn't tracking his steps intentionally. And so I thought, well, I'll just go to that day. And when I went to that day, what we saw was matching it up with the time frame that they would have got back. We saw that increased heart rate of what and if I remember, I think we had narrowed, I think we got the timeline to 36 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Right, Tom?
Yeah, we had narrowed it down pretty
Correct.
because, and then I think he went mobile and it picked it up. And so we were able to know he had left the house. So we knew what time roughly they had gotten there, back to the house, the two of them, based on traffic cameras, Snapchat, all that. And then also I think his Life 360 was still running. So we knew the time what they got there. And then we knew what time roughly he left the house. And then the Apple 360 data showed massive movements during like 3 iterations in a particular time.
Do we think he was? I mean, do we think he was wearing the Apple Watch when he committed the?
He did not have an Apple Watch on. It was his phone. It was his phone.
Yeah, I think he had his phone probably in his pocket, and it was probably the struggle that it picked up.
That phone was moving so much, is what we believe. It activated.
And then at some point, right, he had to move Valerie into his office. And I think that was another iteration of movement that it picked up with an increased heart rate. And so that was one of the three. So there is the initial struggle, moving her, and then something else was the third one that read it as high intensity steps.
Mhm.
And Sean and I at the time, we had a surplus of whiteboards. So we had this massive whiteboard in our office, and we have all these little whiteboards everywhere that have all this I mean, if you walked into our office, it looked like we were lunatics. So we took one of those whiteboards, wiped it off, and we figured out what the average. This shows county agency versus federal. What we have available to us. So Sean and I figured out what on average the steps a common person would be able to take and cover what distance in that time. And we used stick figures and drew these houses on this whiteboard. And I remember taking a picture and sending it to Tom, and I was like, hey, we found this. This is encompassing the pond. It was encompassing Valerie's house, Patrick's house, and just that right there in that area. So we knew we were narrowing on the area. And I was like, 24 hours later, Tom sends us this pretty layout of all this stuff that they were able to produce for us in the federal world. So that just shows you the difference between how we have to do it and how they do it. So.
A question. Did Scott have any prior crimes before this?
No.
Completely clean. How often do you encounter someone who would commit a homicide like this that has no prior record?
I think if it's in the heat of the moment, it could be. I mean, I think that would make sense. But I would say majority would have some criminal record. And now that's not counting the obvious false informing that we charged him with. But yeah, no, he was not a past criminal.
Okay.
Successful business.
Another question, did law enforcement have any initial doubts with using the HRD cadaver dogs?
You mean when we called Tony in, is that what the question was?
That's the question.
No, when we first, and I don't know if this was out or not, but where her first pings were south of Arlington. And so we actually used, Tony and them came out, and we actually searched 100 acres in the first few weeks of where her last pings were. We put dogs out, and you talk about quite an undertaking. We put, to cover 100 acres like we did, it took a lot. And I remember being gassed that day by the time we were done. So we had used cadaver dogs a couple times and put them in strategic locations where we thought that it made the most sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let me get to another Bailey question. Is there a specific dead smell that Bailey is looking for, or do all remains smell the same to her? In theory, if there were another dead person on the property, would she be able to differentiate between them?
No. Specific as far as when it comes to odor of decomposition, but she's specifically trained for human decomposition. One of the questions we always get is, how do you know it's not a dead rabbit or a dead squirrel? As a matter of fact, the day we searched the pond, they pulled a dead dog out of the pond. And for us, we're like, no, that's not what they're smelling. That's not what they're going to indicate on. They're dogs. They can go smell that stuff, but they're not going to indicate on it.
Okay. And let me just see if there are any. Okay. We got that. When to talk again, because I thought it was so interesting, because I thought it sounded like a joke at first in terms of with your use of the dogs, but you won't let one dog watch another dog indicate on something because because there is the thought that will influence the next canine to go.
Correct. And two things, because it will also influence the other person that's handling that dog as well. If I was standing there, somebody go and their dog indicating at a certain spot, I can't help but feel that's going to be natural for my dog to do the same thing. So we don't want to know what each other's doing. And as a matter of fact, when we start the investigation and we start searching, I just want to know, you give us the area and then we'll tell you what our dogs have told us in that specific area that we're searching, if that makes sense.
Right. And when you guys did the went out and did the pond, how shocked were you? And I mean, I know the guys were shocked, but how shocked were you when all the dogs were indicating? You had 3 dogs indicate on the same spot on the completely other side of this pond where they shouldn't be anything to indicate on, correct?
When we have that situation, that doesn't surprise me. If my dog expect that the other dogs are going to indicate in the same spot. And what was nice for these guys, and I think, Randy got a good taste of, like he had mentioned, when we went and searched the 100 acres, we had lots of dogs out there that day. Each dog searched, a couple different areas, and every area was searched twice by at least 2 dogs searching from different directions, different winds, different elements facing them, and not one indication of those dogs all day long in that hot day out there for 100 acres. But when we go to the pond and every dog indicates at the same spot, we don't have a doubt. We know there's odor there. Then the game is, okay, we have to figure out where that's coming from. Because it doesn't necessarily, as we found out, it doesn't necessarily mean the body's there. It means the odor's there.
And how often do you find an odor in your line of work where the body is not located?
Where they're located?
I'm sorry?
Where the body's not located?
Correct. Like the odor may have traveled.
And that's when we get, the older the case is, the more the odor will move, if that makes sense. If there was a body out there that was fresh, and was beginning to decompose, the dogs would be drawn right to that specific location. But if we're talking about getting to a point where the body's had time to decompose, then there's also been time for that odor to move quite a bit through water or through air from the body itself.
Wow. Okay. Another question: is there a specific breed of dog that is better than the other to train as a cadaver dog?
I guess I'm supposed to answer no, but I'm partial to dogs that are obviously physically able to go out and do some of the places we do. They're going up and down hills, they're jumping over logs, going under fences. We're out there searching 100 acres in 90-degree heat. You need a dog that's going to be able to withstand that and continue working. Some dogs, obviously, they're not designed for that much physical exertion. Can any dog potentially be trained to smell and detect odor? Yes. Their noses are so much stronger than ours. Now, obviously, there are some that have better noses and more capacity than others.
Is that your bloodhound?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, your bloodhound is known for the tracking. I mean, when you think of a bloodhound, that's what you think. It's a tracking dog that's gonna that will go out and hunt, and that's what they're known for.
Right. One of the amazing factoids that I read was that if the odor reaches a dog's nose, depending upon which nostril it hits first, the dog will know which nostril it hits first and be able to then go in that direction.
Well, it'll also be able to tell where the odor is the freshest from. And what's nice with the dogs, with the design of their nose, they can really, if this makes sense, the air will come in and it circulates in their nose. So even as they're exhaling, they still have the potential to be able to detect odor.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah. Huh. And I know the dogs are up to 100,000 times more sensitive than a human nose?
Yeah, and here's the thing about that. This is what's amazing to me. I can picture if somebody says, "Hey, I can jump twice as high as you." Well, yeah, if you do 4 inches, you jump twice as high as me because I can do 2. I can understand those numbers. But when you start talking 100 times more, 1,000 times more, 10,000 times, 100 times stronger than ours, we can't even grasp the ability that they have. It's just underutilized with.
Wow. And how long has Indianapolis PD had a missing persons canine unit?
When Bailey was about a year and a half old and she got certified, she was the first ever.
Oh, okay.
When I went into the unit, the one thing that we didn't have is we didn't have search and rescue dogs. And I was told they didn't train that way. So I was in a where with the supervisors I had, I asked permission and I said, "Can I?" And so I actually began with a tracking dog, a Labrador, that I used for a little over 7 years, tracking with her to find live a child with autism, somebody with dementia. But then I was in a position I would still have to call people in anytime we were looking for a body. And so it didn't take me long to figure out that I was going to need another dog to do the thing. And so I got Bailey at 9 weeks old as a pup and trained her. And so once I started using her and had 2 dogs that I was using on the department, then they went ahead and recognized me as a police canine, and we're a team now.
That's cool. That's cool. As we kind of talk about this, you always do your after action report for those who are former military. I know at least Tom is. Is there anything that informed you guys in terms of how you would do your job differently, better, or is there anything that you learned from this that was like, you know what, I went down this road and I learned something for next time?
I would say it just hammered home what I believe is in this situation here. If it was possible evidence in regard to social media or any of that, we applied for it. And there was a lot of stuff that we didn't use, but we would have lost every bit of that if we didn't take that seriously. So I think the initial response of making sure we were executing all those search warrants, applying for all those search warrants, doing all that. And if this would have turned out differently, we didn't need any of it. It would have still been fine, but it was so crucial to have all of it at the end to piece all this together. So I mean, I think it just hammered home what we believe our whole group was that we do everything we possibly can, and we're hoping for the best, but we're preparing for the worst, and that's how we focused on this. And I mean, I think it just hammered home in this job as I continue on. I will always remember that do everything I possibly can do to make sure I have it just in case I need it later. Mm-hmm. So and again, I will always keep saying this with this group. A lot of us didn't know each other going into this. There was 4 of us that knew each other. Everybody else came into it as this investigation went. When Tom came into it, I was not happy with a lot of the help we were getting at the time. And then the FBI came in and Tony came in, and we could not have a group that had better personalities that just worked together. Like, we all got along, and in law enforcement, that doesn't always work. And other agencies could take this investigation and see how federal, state, local all work together collectively. And we solved this case because of that, because of our willingness to work together. And we didn't have anybody that was better than anybody else. We just grinded on this case to get to the end. And that was done because of the teamwork amongst everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've done podcasts where, as you said, it doesn't always work that way. And on the last podcast I did down in Mississippi, one federal agency tried to arrest another member of another federal agency.
Happens.
I just don't think personalities could have worked better. I mean, it was amazing how all our personalities flowed.
No.
We've all become lifelong friends because of it, and we still stay in contact with each other regularly because of it.
Right. Another question: how much of the tracking is the dog following wherever their nose leads them versus how much is influenced by the handler?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
How much of the tracking of the dog following wherever their nose leads them versus how much is influenced by the handler?
We want the dogs to lead us because they're off leash when they're searching. So it's completely up to them. We want the dog strong enough to tell us, to go tell us where the odor is. And we want them, if this